Welcome to Panda Tale. I hope you have a great time listening to the story. If you enjoy it, don't forget to give me a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Sister, the crown prince was drunk and mistook me for you. I beg you to grant me death. On our wedding night, my stepsister clutched her torn clothes and burst into the bridal chamber, performing a heart-wrenching act. In my previous life, I believed her, I endured, and in the end, she and the crown prince conspired to poison me to death. Reborn in this life, I look at this pair of dogs before me, my heart filled only with ice, cold hatred. She pretended to seek death to preserve her reputation, while the crown prince feigned remorse seeking forgiveness. I slowly spoke, "Sister understands righteousness so well, I am truly touched. Since you seek to preserve face, I shall grant your wish. Someone bring 3 feet of white silk and send my sister on her way." The fake tears on my stepsister's face instantly turned to genuine horror. The crown prince looked at me as if seeing a stranger, as if seeing a madwoman. This is just the beginning. The pain of being poisoned in my previous life, I will repay 1,000 times over. I want to watch with my own eyes as you descend into madness with regret, writhing in remorse in an inescapable hell. The wedding chamber was ablaze with light, red bamboo lanterns casting blood-red shadows throughout the room. I, Serena Blackwood, eldest daughter of the general's manor, sat properly on the wedding bed, my gold-threaded wedding dress and veil perfectly still. The noise outside gradually subsided, but approaching footsteps were chaotic. These were not the steady steps of the groom, Marcus Thornfield, Crown Prince of Thornfield Manor. With a loud bang the door was roughly kicked open, cold wind rushed in, making the red candles flicker violently. Before the wedding attendants could cry out, a figure with disabled hair and torn clothes rolled to the ground near my feet. "Sister, sister, save me." Her voice was pitifully tragic, carrying rehearsed weakness and terror. It was my stepsister Sophia Blackwood. She had insisted on following the wedding procession to Thornfield Manor for the ceremony, claiming she couldn't bear to part with me. I hadn't lifted my veil yet, but I could imagine her tear-stained face like pear blossoms in the rain in my previous life. That very expression had deceived me completely, softened Marcus's heart, taken everything from me, even my life. The poison poured down my throat, the feeling of my organs being torn apart. I remember it clearly. I remember them holding their bastard child, standing before my bed, coldly watching me take my last breath. Sophia cried as she spoke, each word seeming to bleed. "Sister, the crown prince was drunk, went to the wrong room, mistook me for you." Sob, sob, sob. My innocence is completely ruined. She crawled forward several steps as if trying to grab my robes. "Sister, things have come to this. Though my reputation is lost, your honor and the crown prince's cannot be tarnished. The face of both manors cannot be lost. I beg you to grant me white silk. I wish to die to preserve the reputation of both families." Words full of nobility, retreating to advance, extremely clever. According to the script from my previous life, I should be shocked and horrified, heartbroken to the extreme, then for the greater good, for my husband, I would swallow my tears and endure, either accepting her as a concubine or secretly sending her away, but always swallowing this humiliation, planting seeds of future disaster. The room fell deathly silent. The maids and servants all stood frozen like statues. More hurried footsteps approached. Marcus burst in, his outer robe disheveled, reeking of wine and another ambiguous scent, his face showing just the right amount of panic and guilt. "Serena, let me explain. I drank too much. I truly didn't mean to." He saw Sophia on the ground, his eyes flickered, and he immediately knelt down in remorse. "Sister, I only seek death." Sophia's crying echoed heartbreaking and moving. I slowly raised my hand and lifted the red veil myself. In the room bathed in glaring red, I saw the barely concealed triumph in Sophia's tearful eyes. I saw the cold indifference and calculation in Marcus's apologetic demeanor. They thought they had everything under control. They didn't know that I, Serena, had returned from the underworld, returned just as the stain was beginning, still in time to wash it clean. I silently looked at Sophia on the ground, my gaze cold as ice, as if looking at a corpse. She continued her performance. Sister, please grant my wish. I spoke, my voice calm without ripples. Very well. Sister thinks so thoroughly for me, for the face of both families. I am truly moved. Sophia and Marcus, hearing this, secretly breathed sighs of relief. They think I've fallen for their trap. I continued leisurely. Sister, rest assured, after you pass, I'll have the best coffin prepared. A proper burial for you. You seek death to preserve everyone's reputation, such a noble act. As for your mother, I will personally speak to father. Ask him to elevate her to noble concubine status, grant her some dignity, so as not to waste your filial piety and sacrifice today. Sophia's crying instantly stopped. She raised her head, tears still on her face, but her expression had turned blank, the triumph in her eyes instantly becoming incredible horror. Marcus's knees, about to touch the ground, froze mid-air. He stared at me blankly, as if seeing me for the first time. I didn't spare him a glance, only focusing on Sophia, my tone even gentle. Sister seeks benevolence and receives it. How could I not grant it? I turned to look at my personal maid Emma, who stood frozen to one side. Emma, go inform the manor's steward to prepare a fast horse to take second miss back. My gaze turned cold, each word crystal clear. Also, bring 3 feet of white silk. Tell father, this is the dignity second miss sought herself. I have agreed. Someone, send second miss back to the general's manor. I deliberately emphasized the last words with an authority that brooked no resistance. The majesty of the general's eldest daughter. In my previous life, to please Marcus, to maintain my reputation for virtue, Iones held back. No need for that now. No, sister. I didn't mean it. I don't want to die, sister. Sophia completely collapsed. She never thought I would actually follow through on her words. She only wanted to pressure me, to put me in a difficult position, to make Marcus feel guilty, to secure a position, at least leave a thorn in my heart that couldn't be removed. She never expected I would take that very thorn and stab it back into her heart, using her life to end this charade. She rolled and crawled, trying to flee, then turned to Marcus for help. Your Highness, save me. May. Perhaps I already carry your Highness's bloodline. She was so panicked she didn't know what she was saying. But these words confirmed she was no longer innocent. Marcus's face turned white as paper, looking at me filled with fear. This woman he thought was gentle and easy to bully, the general's eldest daughter, how had she become like this? Serena, are you mad? She's your sister. Marcus finally found his voice and roared at me. I coldly glanced at him, just one look but filled with the resentment of an entire past life. Your Highness, watch your words. She voluntarily sought death for reputation. Or in your Highness's eyes, is the face of both manors not worth more than a lowly woman's life? Or rather, your Highness wasn't drunk and in the wrong room at all, but acted deliberately. The guest quarters are in the west courtyard, the bridal chamber in the east courtyard. In all of Chang'an, I've never heard of anyone so drunk they could stumble from east to west. Does your Highness know this path very well? My words cut into Marcus's heart like sharp knives. He opened his mouth but couldn't refute a single word. Yes, they had been having an affair long ago. In my previous life, Sophia insisted on coming along precisely to perform this act. Her guest room was deliberately arranged by Marcus near the study, far from the bridal chamber, convenient for us sneaking around and for staging this wrong room drama. They calculated that I was weak, considerate of the bigger picture, wouldn't dare make a scene. Unfortunately, they miscalculated. The large matrons by my side were all brought from the general's manor, only taking orders from me. They stepped forward, unceremoniously grabbing the crying and struggling Sophia, gagging her to avoid disturbing the elders. A cloth was immediately stuffed in Sophia's mouth. She could only make muffled sounds, her eyes filled with desperate terror. She was truly afraid now. She didn't expect I would dare. Just then, hurried footsteps approached. Lord and Lady Thornfield, alerted by the commotion, rushed over with their people. What's happening? Such chaos on the wedding day. What kind of propriety is this? Lord Thornfield's face darkened, clearly displeased. Lady Thornfield entered to see the room in complete disarray. Sophia restrained by the matrons, clothes disheveled. Marcus white as paper, and I, Serena, veil lifted, sitting calmly on the bed's edge without a bride's shyness or joy. Marcus dropped to his knees with a thud before Lord Thornfield. "Father, mother, your son has sinned." I stood up, my figure straight as my father's spear. I performed the proper greeting to my in-laws, then with the calmest voice repeated Sophia's words verbatim. "My stepsister understands great righteousness. To preserve the face of both manors, to protect her sister and husband's reputation, on this wedding day she voluntarily requests 3 feet of white silk to prove her innocence through death. This daughter-in-law admires such nobility and has agreed. I've ordered her sent back to await father's judgment. As for the crown prince," I looked toward Marcus, no love or hate in my eyes, only cold emptiness. "The crown prince, drunk, has ruined a proper lady's reputation. How to handle this daughter-in-law respectfully leaves to father and mother to decide. Only I fear this wedding night cannot proceed peacefully." I deliberately emphasized the words, "understands righteousness, preserve face, nobility," each word carefully placed. I put this tall hat firmly on Sophia's head, binding it tight. She herself asked for death to preserve face. Now before Lord and Lady Thornfield. Who would dare say face isn't important? Who would dare let both families be humiliated and become the laughingstock of Chang'an for a secondary daughter? Sophia had blocked her own path to survival. Lord and Lady Thornfield's faces turned ashen after hearing this. They looked at their useless son, then at the lowly woman still struggling with her mouth gagged, then at me. My eyes told them this matter was non-negotiable. I, Serena Blackwood, am not a soft cake for others to knead. Your son and that lowly woman dare humiliate me on my wedding night. I want their lives in exchange." Lady Thornfield looked at me with complicated eyes. I fear she never imagined the bride they welcomed would be such a deadly force. For the manor's face, Lord Thornfield could only grit his teeth and nod. Sophia was dragged out along with that fateful white silk. Marcus prostrated on the ground, his whole body trembling. The red candles still burned, crackling with each sound. Tonight was destined to be unpeaceful. The blood debt from my previous life. Tonight was just the beginning of the reckoning. My hands clenched tightly in my sleeves, nails digging into flesh, feeling no pain. How could this little pain compare to 1/10,000th of my previous life? Marcus, Sophia Blackwood, this drama has only just begun. Sophia was sent back to the general's manor that very night, the 3 feet of white silk following her like a death warrant. My father, General Arthur Blackwood, was awakened in the middle of the night, listening as the Thornfield servants recounted my words verbatim. Seeing Sophia crying pitifully like mud and the glaring white silk, he nearly drew his sword on the spot to kill her. The general's manor had lost all face this time. The eldest daughter's wedding, and the younger daughter climbs into her sister's husband's bed, causing an uproar throughout the capital. But Sophia didn't die in the end, not because father softened, but because I had Emma secretly pass word. Letting her die would be too merciful. In my previous life, she and Marcus had an affair, bore children, enjoyed wealth and glory, and finally poisoned me to death. To let her die easily now, where would I place my hatred? I want her to live in hell. The white silk hung from the beam. Sophia was forced to put her head through the noose. So frightened she lost control of her bladder, nearly fainting. At the last moment, father, considering their father-daughter bond, imprisoned her and her mother Lady Catherine in the most remote woodshed of the manor, forcing her to look at that silk every day, living in fear and torment. That is the face I granted her. Meanwhile at Thornfield Manor, the wedding night scandal was like a slap across Lord and Lady Thornfield's faces. Marcus was punished with 30 lashes by Lord Thornfield, his flesh torn and raw, forced to kneel in the ancestral hall to repent. Lady Thornfield came to my courtyard wiping tears, trying to persuade me. Serena dear, Marcus was just momentarily foolish. He still has you in his heart. What man doesn't steal a taste here and there? Besides, this time it was your sister who threw herself at him. We'll handle this quietly behind closed doors. If you keep being so rigid, it will damage the marital affection. How will you live together in the future? I calmly served tea. Please have some tea, mother. Cold tea harms the body. My eyes met hers directly. It's not that I'm being stubborn. Sophia sought face herself. The crown prince gave me no face, gave Thornfield Manor no face. On my wedding night, I showed an empty room alone while the crown prince was with my stepsister. If this gets out, mother, where should I put my face? Where should the general's manor put its face? Can the 100-year reputation of Thornfield Manor be preserved? Marital affection. I smiled, the smile not reaching my eyes. Mother, a husband who can go to the wrong room on his wedding night, can we still call that marital affection? The affection died in my previous life when he and Sophia forced me to drink poison. No, even earlier. From when he repeatedly cold-shouldered me, indulged Sophia in humiliating me, even accepted their child calling me first mother, while that lowly woman was mother. There was no affection left. Lady Thornfield was speechless. She knew I was right, had the moral high ground, with no room for rebuttal. I'm not a sheltered lady who only knows to treat her husband as heaven. I am the general's daughter, with killing spirit in my bones. 3 days later, the return visit to my maiden home. Marcus, beaten nearly to death, couldn't walk. Lady Thornfield wanted me to return alone or postpone to another day. I refused. Rules are rules. If the crown prince can't go, is that the fault of the Blackwood daughter? The fault of Thornfield Manor? Face must be maintained. Thornfield Manor must provide. I insisted. Finally Lord Thornfield himself ordered servants to carry Marcus, pale as death, on a soft sedan, to accompany me back to the general's manor. On the way, Marcus lay in the sedan, constantly stealing glances at me with eyes both resentful and fearful. He was afraid. He'd never seen me like this. The old Serena always listened to him, was always gentle and yielding. He frowned. I was already heartbroken, now dead. The one alive is a vengeful ghost returned from hell. At the general's manor gates, the atmosphere was oppressively heavy. My father's face was cold as frost, personally coming out to receive us. Seeing Marcus being carried down, his expression darkened further. I alighted from the sedan, posture straight, gaze calm, performing the proper greeting to father. Marcus was helped up to bow, cold sweat beading from pain. What happened to my son-in-law? Father asked knowingly, voice cold as ice. Right, reporting to father-in-law. I was careless and got slightly injured. Marcus gritted out. Oh, so careless on your wedding day. Father snorted coldly. Inside the manor, the atmosphere grew heavier. Father sat in the main seat, I sat below, while Marcus, due to his injuries, was permitted to sit, though uncomfortably. Lady Catherine and Sophia naturally weren't qualified to appear, but I knew those two lowly women were surely hiding in the woodshed, trembling as they listened to every word. Father asked several questions about the Thornfield household, each one cutting like a knife. Marcus sweated profusely, struggling to respond. I simply sat calmly drinking tea throughout like an outsider. But I understood, this was my battlefield. What happened on the wedding night was Thornfield Manor's fault to Serena. Finally father spoke directly. That wretched creature, I've already locked her up, but Crown Prince, you are the Blackwood son-in-law, yet you do something worse than beasts. What do you say should be done? Marcus immediately tried to rise and kneel. Father-in-law, it's all my fault. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Punishment? Father laughed coldly. Can a few lashes erase my daughter's humiliation? I set down my teacup and spoke softly. Father, your daughter doesn't feel wronged. Both father and Marcus turned to look at me simultaneously. I looked at Marcus, gaze peaceful. The Crown Prince's deep affection for my sister is so profound he'd do such a thing on our wedding night. His feelings must be engraved in his bones. Your daughter is not unreasonable. Forcing fruit to ripen cannot make it sweet. If the Crown Prince truly loves my sister, your daughter is willing to ask Father and Lord Thornfield to preside over our divorce, to fulfill this deeply affectionate couple. Divorce. These two words struck like lightning, echoing in Father's and Marcus's minds. Marcus raised his head sharply, as if unable to believe it. Serena, you dare speak of divorce? He thought I was just making a scene, trying to force him to bow and yield. He never imagined that 3 days after marriage, I would dare speak those words so decisively. This was a complete break, throwing away all face. Serena, don't push an inch to take a mile. I just made a small mistake. You've already a pawn princess, a position countless women dream of, yet you dare demand divorce. Marcus roared in anger, not caring about his injuries. Father also frowned. Serena, don't speak rashly. Marriage is a serious matter, not to be trifled with. Divorce would greatly damage a woman's reputation and offend Thornfield Manor. Father, though angry, still didn't want things to reach this point. I stood up, walked before Marcus, looking down at him from above. Push an inch to take a mile. Marcus, on our wedding night you and my stepsister committed adultery, making me the laughingstock of all Changan. Tell me who is pushing whom. You think the crown princess position is some treasure. I, the general's eldest daughter, don't care for a chair stained with filth. You say you made a mistake. I took another step forward, lowering my voice so only those in the room could hear. Did you really only make a mistake on our wedding night? The path to the west courtyard guest room. How many times have you walked it? Before Sophia came to Thornfield Manor, how many times had you two met? The Red Fortune Inn villa outside the city. Surely the crown prince isn't unfamiliar with these places. Marcus's face instantly turned white as paper, his pupils contracting violently, looking at me as if seeing a demon. He'd never told anyone about that. How could I know? How could I know? Fear swept through Marcus's mind like a storm. His gaze no longer held resentment, only bottomless terror. Father, though not knowing the details, seeing Marcus's changing expression, guessed the truth. His face darkened, gloomy as if about to drip water. Marcus, you and that wretch. Could it be that before the marriage you already... Father's clenched fists creaked. Father cut him off, turning back, his voice returning to calm. The divorce matter won't be mentioned for now, but my daughter's dignity cannot be lost. Sophia cannot stay. She's already been with the crown prince intimately. By propriety she could be taken as a concubine, but her heart is wicked. She schemed against her sister. Her morals corrupt. She's unworthy to enter Thornfield Manor's door. I turned to look at Father, speaking solemnly. Your daughter requests Father send Sophia and her birth mother Lady Catherine to the countryside estate, under strict supervision, never to set foot in Changan again in this lifetime. As for the child in her belly, if there truly is one... I paused, then said coldly, abort it. The Thornfield bloodline cannot be ambiguous. Marcus's whole body shook. He opened his mouth to speak, but facing my gaze cold as ice and snow, as if seeing through his soul, he swallowed his words back. He didn't dare, he was afraid. Afraid I knew more things he couldn't bear. He wasn't sure how much I knew. If Sophia was truly pregnant, it would be his first child. In the previous life, that child was his and Sophia's treasure, a thorn in my eye. Not in this life. Father looked at me. He'd never seen his daughter so resolute and decisive, but he understood what great grievance I must have suffered. Good, as you wish. Father's fist came down hard, speaking decisively. That wretch and the lamb woman will be immediately expelled from the manor. As for the bastard in her belly, it absolutely cannot be kept. From the direction of the woodshed came a mournful wail, Lady Catherine's voice. Sure enough, they were eavesdropping. Next came Sophia's heart-rending cries. My child! Crown Prince, save our child! Marcus trembled all over, wanting to plead, wanting to resist, but he didn't dare. He'd been beaten into submission, even more frightened into losing his composure by me. I coldly watched it all. This was just beginning. Aborting the fetus, expelling them from Changan, these were just appetizers. I turned to look at Marcus, lips curving in a faint smile. Your Highness, let's return to the manor. The days ahead are still long. Marcus looked at the smile on my face, feeling as if he'd fallen into an ice cave, cold penetrating to his bones, involuntarily shuddering. He knew his hell had also just begun. Face. I'll give you all the face you want, except when you yourselves don't want it. Sophia and Lady Catherine were sent out of Chang'an that very night, imprisoned in a remote estate so desolate even birds wouldn't fly over. Accompanying them was a military physician personally dispatched by father and a bowl of dark medicine specifically for abortion. Sophia wailed that she wasn't pregnant, that her words on the wedding night were just panic to save her life. I didn't bother distinguishing truth from lies. In the previous life, she had gotten pregnant around this time. Whether she was or wasn't, she had to drink that medicine. After drinking it, even if there was nothing, it would damage her vital energy and destroy her foundation. If she wanted children in the future, I wanted to cut off her foundation, extinguish Marcus's hope. When news reached Thornfield Manor, Marcus smashed a porcelain vase in the ancestral hall, and was punished by Lord Thornfield to kneel for another 3 days. He hated me, ground his teeth in hatred, but feared me even more. The day we returned to my maiden home, I had pointed out those secret places like a ghost haunting him. He couldn't figure out how a sheltered lady could know where he'd gone for pleasure. It was this not knowing that terrified him, made him not dare act rashly. Within Thornfield Manor, the surface was calm but undercurrents surged. I used thunderous methods to take over all internal affairs of the Crown Prince's courtyard. Several maids around him, some flirting, some with unclean thoughts. I found excuses to sell them all. The external and secondary wives he'd been supporting, I used the pretext of checking accounts to warn them and cut off their monthly allowances. When some refused to accept it and came to the manor causing trouble, I immediately had them beaten out with sticks, telling them plainly that I, the Crown Princess, wouldn't tolerate a speck of sand in my eye. Marcus was furious to madness, but his body hadn't healed. He was under Lord Thornfield's supervision, and I held something over him he couldn't let be exposed. He could only watch helplessly as I pulled out his claws one by one, cleaned out the rear court, leaving no gaps. Lady Thornfield's gaze toward me grew increasingly wary. She wanted to intervene, but I had reason in everything. The authority to manage affairs was personally granted by Lord Thornfield. I was the general's eldest daughter. She couldn't treat me like an ordinary household woman. I wanted Marcus isolated and helpless. In my previous life, I was too foolish, wholeheartedly being a virtuous wife, managing and cleaning his rear court, covering up scandals. The result was only fattening a pack of wolves who turned to bite my heart. This life I need rely on no one. I myself am the blade. Emma was my most trusted person. In the previous life, she was murdered by Sophia and Marcus for protecting me, framed for theft and beaten to death with cloves. This life I keep her close, allowing no mistakes. Miss, it's done, Emma reported softly. Before Miss married in, the Crown Prince indeed frequently visited the West Courtyard guest room. Moreover, in the purchase records, it shows the Crown Prince once ordered someone to buy a Western incense called enchantment fragrance. My eyes darkened. Enchantment fragrance wasn't ordinary incense. Small amounts calm the mind, large amounts confuse one's wits and stir desires. In the previous life, Sophia always had that faint fragrance on her. I had thought then she just liked to put on airs. Now thinking back, there was no drunkenness on the wedding night, it was all prearranged. Perhaps she and Marcus used that incense for their drama, just performing for me and the elders of both families, to make the so-called unintended mistake seem more reasonable. Filthy, truly filthy. There's more. Emma's voice lowered. People from our estate report that when second Miss was forced to drink the medicine, she resisted violently. The military physician confirmed after examination that she was indeed more than a month pregnant. Crack! The teacup in my hand shattered. Porcelain shards embedded in my palm. Fresh blood flowed like a stream. Miss! Emma panicked. I felt no pain. More than a month indeed. Even before I'd stepped into Thornfield Manor, they'd already been having their sordid affair, even nurturing a bastard in her belly. In this life, I'll make them all pay in blood. That wrong room drama on the wedding night was entirely to find a legitimate excuse for that bastard. If I had weakly retreated then, they would have said the child resulted from the wedding night accident. forcing me to swallow the humiliation and accept a legitimate eldest son of secondary birth. Such vicious hearts. In the previous life, I was deceived exactly like this. That child wasn't the result of the wedding night all, but a bastard conceived before the wedding. They trampled on my dignity, my face, to pave the way for that bastard. In the end it still wasn't enough, they took my very life. Where's the child? My voice was cold enough to drop ice shards. The military physician received Mrs. orders and forced her to drink the medicine. That drug was very strong, the child is gone. Second Miss lost a lot of blood. Almost didn't survive and is still unconscious. Emma lower her head. 25 Father Alun and 2026 and 11. Good that it's gone. In the previous life, you used this child to stab my heart. In this life I personally destroyed it. But this is just the interest. Miss, your hand. I lowered my head to look at my blood-stained hand, calmly letting Emma bandage it. Emma, isn't Lady Thorold's birthday coming up in a few days? Yes. Madam plans to celebrate grandly. Invitations have been sent everywhere. The General's manor is also invited. Very good. I looked out the window, my gaze cold as frost. Find someone, the military physician who felt Sophia's pregnancy pulse. Find a way to have him appear at the banquet. Also, prepare a generous gift for Lady Thornfield. I want to give them an additional grand gift at this very banquet. Ozerson 25 and 41 0926 of 47. Lady Thornfield's birthday banquet was crowded with guests. Thornfield Manor was brightly lit with decorations, intending to use the joyous atmosphere to wash away the filth from the wedding night. My father also came, his expression still gloomy. Marcus's injuries had nearly healed. Wearing a new brocade robe, he stayed close by my side, playing the loving couple. He occasionally stole glances at me, his gaze complex. He knew the child was gone. He hated me but feared me even more. Lady Thornfield smiled like a flower, receiving congratulations from all directions. I, with my status as crown princess, stood properly helping to receive guests and entertain. 100 of 26 907 12. The banquet reached its midpoint, the atmosphere at its most lively. I glanced at Emma, signaling her. She understood and quietly withdrew. Not long after, a servant rushed in panicked, whispering to the steward. The steward's expression changed, hurrying to Lord Thornfield's side to whisper. Lord Thornfield frowned. Ooh, why are they barging in? Quickly invite them in for questioning. A man in military physician's uniform was brought in, the very physician who had forced Sophia to drink the abortion medicine. Upon entering, he immediately knelt. This humble one greets Lord Thornfield, Lady Thornfield the General, Your Highness. Osozor Tate 2715, Hazorzan 28 and 21. Father recognized him, his expression immediately changing. What are you doing here? The physician answered fearfully. Reporting to General, this humble one was ordered to the estate to handle second Miss's matter. But upon re-examination, I found that though second Miss had aborted, her vital energy was severely damaged, and that medicine seemed to have caused abnormal reactions. This humble one's medical skills are limited and dare not make conclusions. Hearing that Thornfield Manor has rare medicinal herbs in storage, I boldly came to request them, hoping Lord and Lady Thornfield would grant them. He spoke halting a 2748-200-2849. Lady Thornfield, who cherished reputation, quickly asked, What exactly is the matter? Speak clearly. The physician looked at Marcus then at me, finally gritting his teeth to speak. This humble one, when examining second Miss's pregnancy, calculated the dates. It absolutely wasn't from the wedding night, but at least over a month. Moreover, second Miss's body shows signs of long-term use of a type of incense, that kind. The entire banquet hall shook. Over a month meant the General's secondary daughter and Thornfield's crown prince had been having an affair long ago, conceiving a bastard before the marriage. Hazard 2999. What? Wrong room. On the wedding night, it was all fabricated. A farce staged by this pair of dogs, just to give their illegitimate child a proper status. And I, the General's eldest daughter, along with the honor of both families, were just monkeys in their eyes being played for fools. Father's face turned red as liver in an instant. He suddenly slammed the table hard, the dishes and chopsticks jumping up with a clatter, the sound echoing throughout the hall. Rach! Beast! Lord and Lady Thornfield's expressions could no longer hold. They had wanted to use the birthday celebration to dispel the bad air from the wedding night. But it only grew more chaotic. Right at the banquet, another great humiliate 49-202-947, the gazes of all the officials and guests in the hall were like needles, each one piercing them, stabbing straight at Marcus. Marcus's face was worse than a corpse. He wanted to defend himself, but the physician's words were solid evidence. The pregnancy over a month exposed everything. He turned to look at me, no longer resentful in his eyes, only panic and despair. He knew I had done this. Deliberately brought the physician here. Right at the banquet, tearing away the last shred of fabric covering their filth. I wanted them to be utterly ruined. Never who Nalthernton hindered over 730 of a tree. I put on an expression of shock, of disbelief, clutching my chest, swaying as if about to fall. Your Highness, you dared before the wedding to. You deceived me, you both deceived me together. I cried in pain and despair, tears rolling down like rain, pointing at Marcus. You not only had an affair, but wanted your bastard to steal my legitimate son's position. Marcus, how vicious your heart! Emma quickly supported me. Miss, don't get agitated. I performed sincerely as if real, but actually every expression was drawn from the blood and tears of my previous life. Hullerdine 2045. The guests' gazes toward me were full of sympathy and anger. Such a good crown princess, the general's dignified eldest daughter, to be humiliated to this extent by that pair of dogs. Lord Thornfield Manor, must give the Blackwood family justice in this matter! Father roared angrily. Lord Thornfield's face crumpled as he glared fiercely at Marcus, wishing he could kill him on the spot. Marcus sat paralyzed on the ground, body trembling, face ashen. He knew he was finished. Having an affair before marriage, deceiving his legitimate wife, scheming for status, any one of these crimes enough to strip him of his crown prince position. Zohan 30 Wixine Ulon 3108. I leaned against Emma, weakly watching this drama I had personally orchestrated. But the physician hadn't finished speaking. General, Lord Thornfield, there's another matter. This humble one checked second Mrs. belongings and found this. The physician pulled from his chest a fragrance pouch containing fine powder. This is enchantment fragrance from the western regions, with aphrodisiac effects. Second Miss seems to regularly carry it. The toxicity in her body is closely related to it. Moreover, this humble one discovered mixed within it an extremely small amount of another poison. He presented the fragrance pouch. Hoderzan 341 to 340. Thornfield Manor's physician stepped forward, receiving it to smell, then testing with a silver needle for poison. Moments later, his expression changed dramatically. This contains heartbreak herb powder. Though the dosage isn't large, not enough to kill immediately. Long-term exposure or consumption with certain foods would become a chronic deadly poison. Heartbreak herb was the poison. In my previous life, this was what they poured straight down my throat. They didn't just have an affair, didn't just scheme from the start. They harbored murderous intent. Sophia carried poison on the day to strike. Yosen 311, Hodred Salar 207. The entire hall fell into deathly silence. From a scandal, it had now become attempted murder. I looked toward Marcus. He had completely turned to stone. Perhaps he knew about the enchantment fragrance, but did he know Sophia carried heartbreak herb? It doesn't matter. You are one entity. None of you will escape. My revenge has only truly begun now. The 3 words, heartbreak herb, were like a death sentence, instantly turning Lady Thornfield's birthday banquet into a trial for Marcus and Sophia. Hullers and Thurler founds Thurlers 232 having an affair before marriage and conceiving a bastard showed corrupted morals and family dishonor. But involving poison and plotting against the general's eldest daughter, the crown prince's legitimate wife, that crime was high treason, attempted murder. My father, General Arthur Blackwood, held military power as the state defending general. His rage was enough to burn down all of Thornfield Manor. Rebellious daughter, rebellious son, a secondary daughter dares to casually carry poison. Who was she planning to poison? Father roared. Marcus, did you order her to do this? Swoosh! The sword at father's waist unsheathed, cold steel gleaming, aimed straight at Marcus, paralyzed on the ground. The guests in the hall all held their breath in fear, everyone retreating, not daring to speak. Lord Thornfield's expression was now beyond description, with mere words like, "Oogled." His whole body trembled. He knew clearly that this time Thornfield Manor had met with great disaster. Just one misstep and the entire manor would be implicated. Plotting against the general's eldest daughter was tantamount to challenging military authority. Even His Majesty would find it hard to overlook. "General Blackwood, please calm down! This must be a misunderstanding." Marcus, he would never dare harbor such beastly thoughts. Lord Thornfield quickly stood before father, fearing in his rage he might strike down his son with one sword. "Misunderstanding," father roared. "The poison has been found, and you call it a misunderstanding." I struggled to stand, rising straight, my cold voice ringing out, overwhelming all the noise. "Father-in-law, the physician has investigated clearly. The fragrance pouch contains not only aphrodisiac enchantment fragrance but also heartbreak herb. Sophia, a sheltered young lady, where did she get these things? Why would she carry them? If not harboring vicious intent, why would anyone carry poison at all times?" My gaze turned to Marcus, frozen on the ground with a face ashen as death. "Your Highness, dare you say you didn't know Sophia carried poison? You and she met morning and night, sharing pillow talk. Would you not know what she carried? Who was that drug prepared for? Don't you know in your heart?" My gaze was like a blade forged in ice and snow, stabbing straight into his heart. He stammered, "I didn't know. I truly didn't know why Sophia had poison. It has nothing to do with me." He began shifting all responsibility. "In the previous life, you worked hand in hand to harm me. In this life, I'll make you turn on each other like dogs." "You didn't know." I laughed coldly. "Then what about the enchantment fragrance? The manor's purchase records clearly show you ordered it. You gave that incense to Sophia, then had an affair with her. Now poison is found on her, and you say you didn't know and want to wash your hands clean." The manor physician stepped forward, bowing to report. Reporting to Lord Thornfield, "General, if heartbreak herb is mixed with enchantment fragrance, it masks the poison scent, making it hard to detect. If this fragrance pouch is placed where someone frequently goes, that person will gradually weaken and eventually die of exhaustion. It would appear as death from chronic illness, very difficult to trace as poisoning. Insidious. This was exactly how I died in my previous life, weakening day by day until forced to drink the final poison, lingering then dying miserably. So they had long been slowly poisoning me. Sophia, Marcus, your hearts are black as the abyss." Father, hearing this, flew into a towering rage. "Too vicious! This is murder without a trace. Someone follow this general immediately to the estate to arrest that poisonous mother and daughter. Throw them in prison, and interrogate them severely." I spoke up to stop him. All eyes turned to me. I stepped before Lord Thornfield, bowing properly. "Father-in-law, this matter is of utmost importance. Sophia is a Blackwood daughter. Having done such things, the Blackwood family cannot shirk responsibility. But Crown Prince Marcus conspired with her, possibly even being the mastermind. If this matter escalates, Thornfield Manor's reputation will be severely damaged. If the dragon's wrath is aroused, who can bear the consequences?" I retreated to advance. Lord Thornfield, an old fox in officialdom, immediately understood my meaning. I wanted to handle this quietly, but the conditions would certainly not be light. "Serena, in your opinion, how should this be handled?" Lord Thornfield's voice was already hoarse. I looked straight at him, my gaze unwavering. "First, I request father-in-law submit a memorial to court, requesting the removal of Marcus's crown prince title. He is morally corrupt with a vicious heart, unworthy to inherit the peerage." "You dare!" Marcus screamed like a cat with its tail stepped on. "Serena, you poisonous woman, you want to destroy my entire life?" The crown prince position was his life, and I wanted exactly that life. Smack! Lord Thornfield angrily slapped him hard. "Even now you show no remorse." Lord Thornfield turned to look at me, gritting his teeth. "Agreed, I accept." To save Thornfield Manor, he had to sacrifice the pawn to save the king. Second, I continued, I want to divorce Marcus. Such a husband as Serena cannot keep him, but a Blackwood daughter's reputation cannot be tarnished. The divorce papers must clearly state all fault lies with the real party. It is I, Serena, who divorces him, Marcus. A woman divorcing her husband was 1,000 times more vicious than mutual divorce. It was trampling Thornfield Manor's dignity underfoot. Lady Thornfield cried out, No, Serena, absolutely not. What's wrong with it? I said coldly. He had an affair before marriage and plotted against his legitimate wife. My divorcing him is perfectly justified. Lord Thornfield closed his eyes, heart bleeding, but could only say agreed. As you wish. Third, Sophia and Lady Catherine will be handed to father for judgment. Thornfield Manor must not interfere. All evidence of collusion between them and Marcus must be fully surrendered by Thornfield Manor. Agreed. Lord Thornfield ground out through gritted teeth in bitter frustration. Marcus turned completely to stone. Stripped of his crown prince position, divorced by his legitimate wife, charged with conspiracy, he was finished. He had nothing left. Eyes red as blood, suddenly going mad, he lunged up from the ground, charging at me insanely. Serena! I'll kill you! It's you! It's all you're doing. He wanted mutual destruction with me. Father reacted lightning fast, kicking him straight in the chest, sending him flying far to crash hard on the ground, coughing up fresh blood. Rebellious fool. I stood motionless, coldly watching Marcus lying there like a dead dog. In my previous life when you forced me to drink poison, did you ever think of today? This is called karma. The matter was resolved with lightning speed. To preserve the family's peerage and lives, Lord Thornfield submitted a memorial that very day confessing guilt, personally writing a petition to strip Marcus of his crown prince title, presenting it to the throne. The divorce papers were also completed. I, Serena, divorced Marcus, Crown Prince of Thornfield Manor, for moral corruption, favoring concubines over his wife, and plotting against her. Evidence complete. No further connection. When news spread, all of Changan was shaken. The Thornfield Crown Prince stripped of title and divorced by the general's eldest daughter. An unprecedented scandal. Thornfield Manor became the laughingstock of the realm. Marcus lost his title and position, confined within the manor and forbidden to leave. All day he drowned in wine, mind confused, mouth constantly muttering, she knows everything, she's a demon." Did he regret? Perhaps, but he regretted not falling in love with the wrong person, not plotting against me, but provoking the wrong person and losing so thoroughly. Sophia and Lady Catherine were brought back from the estate by father's men. Not thrown in prison, because that would be too light for them. Father had many methods from the military. Lady Catherine, being a concubine, was weak-willed. Before torture was even applied, terrified to trembling, she confessed everything. The enchantment fragrance was obtained by Marcus. The heartbreak herb she had brought from her maiden home long ago, originally for self-protection. But seeing Sophia and Marcus's deep affection, jealousy toward me, the legitimate eldest daughter, arose in her heart, breeding vicious intent. She gave the poison to Sophia, teaching her to slowly, bit by bit, mix it into my tea and meals. The wedding night drama was something the three of them had conspired and arranged early, aiming to legitimize the bastard while suppressing my authority, making me see the situation clearly, obediently be poisoned day by day, ultimately letting Sophia replace me as the legitimate wife. Everything matched perfectly with my memories from the previous life and deductions from this one. Lady Catherine with her snake's heart, a pair of dogs with vicious hearts. Evidence conclusive, witness and material proof complete. When Sophia learned Marcus had been stripped of title and divorced, moreover putting all blame on her without caring about her fate, she completely collapsed. All her calculations had gone up in smoke. She hated Marcus's heartlessness, hated me even more to the bone. I personally went to see her. She was imprisoned in a secret room, hair disheveled, face haggard, not a trace remaining of her former delicate beauty. Seeing me, she charged like a mad demon. "Serena, you bitch! You won't die well! You destroyed me! You destroyed everything of mine. I slightly dodged. Emma beside me kicked her tumbling to the ground. Sophia, you're wrong. I bent down, gripping her chin, forcing her to look straight into my eyes. You destroyed everything of mine in the previous life. I'm just taking back what belongs to me, returning what you owe. My voice was light as a breeze, but falling on her ears was like thunder. What did you just say? Sophia's eyes widened, pupils contracting, fear spreading across her face. I leaned close to her ear, speaking in a voice only we could hear, slowly enunciating. Your son was called Little Kevin, wasn't he? At 3 years old he pushed me into water, and you praised him for being clever and quick. Also, that bowl of poison, you personally brought it. Marcus held me down while you forced it down my throat. You even said, sister, go peacefully. The Crown Prince and Kevin will take care of things for you. Do you remember? Sophia's face instantly twisted to the extreme. Ghost! You're a ghost! You really are a ghost. She went mad, truly insane, screaming, struggling, rolling on the ground. She couldn't believe I had returned with memories from the previous life to claim lives. I stood up, gaze cold, silently watching her madness. Mad was good. Mad made it more interesting. Pulling firewood from under the pot, I had pulled away all of Marcus's power and position, pulled away Sophia's reputation and bloodline, pulled away their very sanity. But it still wasn't enough. Death was your final ending. Only I wanted you to die the way I wanted. Sophia went mad, or more accurately, was frightened mad by me. She couldn't bear that I knew everything from the previous life, screaming day and night, speaking madly, mouth constantly repeating, "She's a ghost! A ghost come to claim my life!" Lady Catherine, seeing her daughter go mad and being frightened out of her wits herself, plus being interrogated for days, soon fell ill, gasping for death. Father asked how I wanted to handle them. I bowed my head in answer. Father, they're already so mad. Throwing them in prison serves no purpose. Better to send them to the charnel house in the south of the city. The charnel house was where nameless corpses and sick dead prisoners were processed, filthy, sordid, no different from death, reeking of rot, disease, centipedes and worms. Let her lie mad, lucid in pain in the filthiest place on earth, rotting day by day. Compared to a clean execution, it was 1,000 times more satisfying. Father nodded in agreement. When Lady Catherine heard she'd be sent to the charnel house, that very night she died of fright-induced heart failure. When Sophia was dragged away, she kept screaming, "Ghost! She's a ghost! She's a ghost!" I stood watching from afar coldly, heart unmoved. You once cast me into suffering. Today I return it 1,000-fold. At Thornfield Manor, Marcus was stripped of title, divorced, becoming a street rat. To extinguish father's and the Emperor's anger, Lord Thornfield cut off all support ruthlessly, reducing all his expenses. Even the servants, seeing the situation, turned cold, neglectful and lazy. Falling from blue clouds to black mud, how could Marcus, once proud and arrogant, bear it? All day he howled in the courtyard, drinking madly, cursing and beating servants. Lord Thornfield had the courtyard gates locked tight, leaving him to live or die on his own. He sent letters to Sophia but received no reply. He didn't know Sophia had already been sent to the charnel house, her fate 100 times worse than his. I had divorced Marcus. By rights I should return to the General's manor, but I didn't hurry to leave, because one matter remained unfinished: the source of the heartbreak herb poison. Lady Catherine said she brought it from her maiden home. I believed that. But the enchantment fragrance was obtained by Marcus. Why would a crown prince of Thornfield Manor have access to aphrodisiac incense, even involving poison? In my previous life, to advance his power, Marcus had associated with many unsavory characters, including a Western medicine merchant called Hassan, specializing in illicit goods, not daring to show his face. The enchantment fragrance very likely came from him. I even suspected the final poison forced down my throat in the previous life was related to this person. I wanted to pull out weeds by the roots. I had Emma spread word that I had a batch of premium medicinal materials and rare treasures from the General's manor, wanting to sell quickly to the highest bidder. Of course, this was just a ruse. I wanted to draw the snake from its hole. Those who couldn't show their faces were always extremely sensitive to wealth and rare goods. Sure enough, days later Emma reported, "Miss, someone has made contact. A scarred Western man calling himself Hassan says he wants to see the goods. He's arranged to meet at the abandoned city god temple in the west part of the city. Tell him the goods can't see light, can only trade there. Tell him to come alone." "Miss, you plan to go personally? Too dangerous!" Emma worried. "Don't worry. I've asked Father to send shadow guards to follow. This time we must pull out the roots completely. I want to see how far Marcus has fallen." On the day of the trade, I disguised myself as a man, bringing Emma and several shadow guards disguised as attendants to the city god temple.
Outside the ruined temple, brilliant sunlight shone down. I took a deep breath of air. Never had it been so fresh. The great revenge was taken, but the emptiness in my heart still wasn't filled. No, it still wasn't over. The root of evil still wasn't completely pulled out. Thornfield Manor, the General's Manor, the rot between them remained. This world's harshness toward women remained. I, Serena, absolutely refused to be a pawn controlled by others. Hassan was taken to the authorities. His poison dealings harming people were investigated to the source, implicating many officials and merchants large and small, shaking Changan. But that's a story for later. Marcus was secretly sent to the charnel house. I even had someone pass word to him that Sophia was waiting for him inside. When pushed into that place reeking of death, fetid of damp, he completely collapsed. He saw Sophia, the woman he once favored, or more accurately lusted after, and was blinded by schemes. Now she was skin and bones, mind disordered, filthy and stinking, sitting among rotting bones, mouth constantly muttering, "Kevin, my Kevin. The Crown Prince will come. The Crown Prince will make us rise above everyone." She no longer recognized him. Marcus wanted to flee, but the charnel house door, once entered, offered no escape alive. The keeper, on my orders, locked him with Sophia in one place, one lucid, desperate, regretful to the extreme, one mad, living in past delusions. The two faced each other day and night. Marcus had to face Sophia's mad ravings, face her sudden biting attacks, face the unbearable stench and boundless fear. He lucidly watched himself and his so-called beloved from before rot together in this earthly hell. They say not long after, Marcus also went mad. He sometimes wept bitterly, sometimes laughed wildly, mouth constantly calling my name, calling Sophia's name, crying, "I was wrong. I regret it." Regret to the point of madness. He truly had gone mad with regret. Finally, a plague outbreak in the charnel house. He and Sophia both caught it and died. Their bodies were thrown among hundreds of nameless corpses, burned to nothing in one pyre. As if they'd never existed in this world, as clean as when I was poisoned to death in my previous life. News reached Thornfield Manor. Lord Thornfield was silent for a long time, as if aging 10 years overnight. Lady Thornfield wept bitterly, but was helpless. To preserve Thornfield Manor, they had to pretend that son had never been born. I packed all my dowry, taking Emma back to the General's Manor. Father looked at me with complicated eyes. He grieved for what I'd experienced, yet felt distant and wary of my ruthless methods. His gentle daughter from years past had become in this short time a decisive woman with a heart like iron. "Serena, you've suffered." In the end, he only said these words. "Father, your daughter hasn't suffered. Washing away the filth makes the heart peaceful." I answered calmly. I was no longer needing Father's protection. Having divorced, my reputation was naturally damaged, with no shortage of gossip in Chang'an. Some said I had a hard fate that killed husbands. Some said I was vicious, not even sparing my husband and sister. Some said I deserved it for falling into that family. I paid no mind. Others have mouths, but the life is mine. In my previous life, for reputation, for the words virtuous, for a man who didn't love me, I suffered and endured, finally body destroyed and soul scattered, not even bones remaining. This life I only need to live gloriously myself. Those who owed me have all repaid. Physically, they paid life for life. Legally, Hassan received the death penalty. Thornfield Manor was implicated. Spiritually, they were ruined in reputation, died in despair and madness. This revenge from head to toe, every pore felt supremely satisfying. The stone weighing on my heart for 2 lifetimes finally shattered. But I understood my path wasn't finished. In the General's Manor were other things, those secondary sisters, those other concubines looking at me with some fear, also some unwillingness. In this world, Women struggle to survive, either relying on men or becoming strong themselves. I chose the latter. I began learning military strategy from father, managing household affairs, even practicing riding and archery. A divorced woman doing such things truly made the world stare. But father silently permitted it. Perhaps he saw the shadow of his younger self in me. Or perhaps he understood only this way could I truly protect myself. At the spring banquet, a blind and black-hearted madam mockingly hinted about my divorce, wanting to see me lose face. I raised my wine cup, smiling meaningfully, slowly approaching. I heard your manor's young master recently visited the pleasure quarters, broke a leg fighting over a courtesan. Ah, youth hot, bloated vigor is normal, compared to those who favor concubines over wives, even plotting to poison the legitimate wife, ultimately being stripped of title, body and soul destroyed, not even leaving a whole corpse. It's still somewhat better. Wouldn't you agree, madam? My words weren't loud, yet silence fell around us instantly. That noble lady's face alternated between blue and white, mouth hanging open for a long moment without producing a single word. Marcus's fate is my calling card. Anyone who wishes to provoke me should first consider whether they have the blessed fortune to withstand my wrath as Marcus and Sophia Blackwood did, or end up stripped of title, body and soul destroyed, not even leaving a whole corpse behind. From that day forward, no one dared speak carelessly in my presence again. I lived as an anomaly in Chang'an, yet also as a legend. A woman returned from hell, personally grinding her enemies to dust, then standing upon their bones with head held high. Living authentically as myself. One moonlit night, I stood in the general's manor tower, gazing upon the 10,000 lights of bustling Chang'an. Emma draped a cloak over my shoulders, speaking softly, "Miss, the night grows late and the wind is cold." I lifted my head to gaze at the bright moon high in the sky, cold and desolate yet radiating brilliance for 10,000 miles, just like my name, Serena, meaning moonlight. That moon, though ice cold, illuminates the world with its splendor. The story ends here. If you found this tale compelling, please grant me a subscription and a like or comment that I might find motivation to share more stories with you. I extend my deepest gratitude for your kind attention. Until we meet again.